Hey guys, and welcome to another Destiny Council video. And today I'm joined by Brian and Will, and we're going to be talking about the regional that happened in Wisconsin. I was unfortunately unable to attend, so I just get to interview these guys. So I guess we'll start with just first things first. When did you guys decide you're going to be playing Reich and Mill?
You first.
Like the day before, maybe 2 days before.
I don't know. I think Will was pretty locked in.
I was like at least 75% gonna play Reich and Mill.
You had like played nothing but Po Hondo and Reich and Mill.
Yeah.
So were you really gonna switch to Po Hondo at the last?
And the Rainbow Vehicles deck. I played that in the tournament the week before and did pretty well. But once I started playing the Mill deck, I was pretty convinced that it was the best deck.
Nice.
I was kind of under the impression that I would write 2 deck lists and turn them upside down and shuffle them up and pick
Classic Brian, just like Worlds.
Because, I've had really good testing with the Throw-in Talisman and the Hero Mill deck, and both decks are really fun, at least for me. I liked playing both of them. I played Hero Mill the longest, and switching to Throw-in Talisman would have been kind of a last-minute switch. But it had toasted really well, so it wasn't until the night we got to the hotel in Wisconsin, I played a couple games, and then I was like, yeah, I'm playing Hero Mill.
But at that point, I don't think we had 2 fallbacks in the deck.
No, we had some last minute adjustments for sure.
But even the week before, remember when we were writing down decks and you had like 10 decks on the sheet and we were like, we gotta cut this down to 5, and we had trouble cutting down to 5, and then we had trouble cutting down to like 3.
Yeah, I think seeing some of the results from the regional the week before helped us, at least get an idea of what people were playing and what decks we need to be ready for. And that's kind of a good baseline for helping us cut down those Gauntless decks.
Yeah, that did kind of dictate how our decks went.
We did all kind of play something different except for us two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to play Throw Talisman until the night before.
So yeah, it wasn't just Will and Brian. Andrew also went. He ended up playing Po Hondo, top forward. My brother also went. He was playing Boba Phasma.
Got 11th place.
So yeah, he did quite well, and he went 6-2. In one of his losses, he actually conceded to his opponent. He gave it to him after he made a significant misplay that wasn't caught until later on in the turn. Like, he had rolled in and resolved a die that wasn't in play.
He resolved, what's it called? On the hunt by accident. And he had overwritten it, but he should have called a judge, I think. But, I mean, I don't know what would have happened. Probably just try and go back to the right game state. I don't think we would have got a game loss, but...
Yeah, never know what exactly is the correct way to handle those type of situations. But in any case, he went 6-2 and just didn't make the cut. Strength of schedule wasn't good enough.
Moral of the story, always call a judge.
Yeah. But, so you get to the regional the morning of. How many players were there, for anybody who hasn't seen the exact totals?
Well,
we thought there was going to be almost 100.
The store literally only had space for 100 people, chairs, table space. So, and then their list said 96 or so. Yeah. But, I mean, considering they took sign-ups without paying, having to pay, I expected there not to be as many, maybe 80. I think the final count was 76.
Yeah, it was 75 or 76, something like that. Yeah.
So, still a pretty decent number.
Yep.
So, going into, round 1, Will, do you maybe want to talk about some of the highlights of your...
Well, I think we should talk about the night before still. We were still debating, I think, 6 cards in the deck or so.
Yeah, I remember, I had a pretty solid idea, and then I was like, I kind of want to run 2 fallbacks, because I was like, well, I don't want to play 2 All Quiets. I'd rather just have a fallback. I think that's a better closer against decks that are not mill.
Because we were playing 2 All Quiet on the fronts for a while, and
probably because we were just playing against each other.
Yeah, that's how you want to end the game. But yeah, then when we started talking about 2 scrap heaps and 2 fall, we were running 1 scrap heap, 1 fallback, and they were like, well, we want an extra fallback. But that makes us want to play another scrap heap.
I think the scrap heap was a for sure.
Well, by that night, yeah.
And then we were like, well, if we're running 2 scrap heaps, why not run 2 fallbacks?
Yeah, and then the 2 overconfidences went in too, which I think they were huge for me all day.
Yeah, I switched up my removal a bit. I had flanks and you had unbreakable. I switched it to unbreakable.
And then I had to sound the alarm, which I took out too.
I convinced you on that.
Oh,
one.
that was
you kept telling me it was a hard lock, and I'm like.
That was the final card the morning before we left. You said
I convinced you on the field medic
over sound the alarm, and it was definitely the right choice. I would put in a second field medic, I think.
Is that just because so much of the meta is specials right now, and not really the melee range sides that they'd be useful against?
Yeah, like rarely do people have a bunch of damage dice showing against you, and if they do, it's usually better just to hyperspace jump out of the way of it.
You already have so many cards good in that situation. You have overconfidence, you have easy pickings, and you have into the garbage chute.
And fallback. I mean, that gets a ton of dice. And
hyperspace jump.
Yeah.
So I was like thinking, like, you know, if there's ever a turn where it's like Obi Miles and they have an Obi Saber, you guys got 3 health left, and you'd rather have the field medic than any other removal.
Yep.
There's other situations too, but.
I can remember a turn where my partisan had like 4 damage on it and no shields, and they like rolled out some damage, but then I had caution and then field medic and then another caution to put him way back up to like full health. So
that morning we locked in the list pretty tight.
Yeah,
we had to actually get someone to bring in a few cards. But
yeah, shout out to Garrett for bringing those cards from Minnesota. He brought us a fallback, and I think we both needed an extra fallback, and then I needed an extra scrap. He let him bring with me.
So yeah, huge shout out to Garrett. He's another Minnesota player who made the trek out to Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, he got 17th. Got a little bit unlucky. He went 5-3, but still did pretty well.
Also played the Boba Phasma.
Yep.
Yeah, same as your brother.
So yeah.
Yeah, Brian had the bye round 1, and
easy.
Yeah, I had already used my buy in the Minneapolis tournament.
I mean, that's a good thing to note too, that we didn't actually have much time to prep for this one. I think it was like 2 weeks before this, we had the Minnesota regional where Legacies was not
legal. So we had been
legal.
testing only for that, and then suddenly had to switch gears and test for Legacies. Yeah, that was a little bit difficult, but yeah. So my first opponent, he was kind of new to the game. He was playing 4 character villain deck. I think it was Sienna, what's her name? Night Sister, Bazine, and a Stormtrooper. And the first card he played against me was a TIE Fighter. And I was like, oh no, because I have like 6 shields on my guys. But luckily he never ended up resolving the special against me. I just had enough removal the whole game and milled him out pretty quick. Do you want me to just go through my?
Yeah, go ahead.
And then, so yeah, the second round I played Phasma Django, which was pretty scary because the thing that gets the mill deck is when you can cheat against it and like just kill a character from 5 damage left without any kind of chance to mitigate, because we got so much removal and you can always get rid of dice so easily. So that was a little scary, but I think he was also kind of a newer player. He made a couple mistakes, but I remember I don't think I lost the character till the very end of the game there. And then I played an Obi Maz, which ended up, I played 3 Obi Mazes on the day, and I think it's one of the best matchups. Not the best matchup, that's a hear later, but Obi Maz I think is a pretty decent matchup because they've only really got 2 dice that are dealing damage from the start until they get a bunch of upgrades out. But I don't really remember much of that game. I know I played a Hunker Down at some point and just kept that character shielded up, and he could never get through it really until a little bit later. And just entrenched, and the shields were too much. Even got an Obi Saber out, but then I think I fell back, and that was his only upgrade for the rest of the game, and was able to mill him out. Then I played a Kylo Tarkin where
wait. Which 3 dice? So it's new Kylo.
It's new Kylo. Yeah, it's 2 Kylo dice and 1 Tarkin die. So I was pretty confident about this matchup because I feel like I've got all the 2 die removal cards and
it's rainbow with gray cards.
Yeah, and he's probably not going to hit that much on Kylo. And so first turn he's playing on Weapons Factory Alpha. Is that the one? Reduce a vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure who won the role. I think he did and picked his battlefield, and then he played a first turn Kylo Starfighter, which again I was fine with because the special doesn't hurt that much. And then he rolled out and did some damage, and then got 2 resources, and then played Maul's Saber first turn, and then rolled it out and hit the damage, and then rolled it out again and hit the damage. And so I went a little bit on tilt there, and I made a few mistakes. And then second turn he played 4 speed on Kylo. So now he's got Maul Saber, 4 speed, and he just kept hitting the double 4 speed specials. And I don't think I saw a removal card until round 4 of that game.
Ouch.
Which with almost, if you count fallbacks, it's 10 cards in the deck. Was a little bit disappointing. And so I raged a little bit. I apologized to him. I forget his name, but he was a really good guy. Talked to him later.
You win, lose?
I got crushed that game.
Ouch.
Well, I don't know. Getting crushed with this deck, I had him down to I think 2 or 3 cards in his hand, and that was it. So, and I did have, I think I had C-3PO out and a Chance Cube. So.
But you never quite felt in control.
No, that's the problem. Yeah, when they've got like 4 speed out against you, it's hard to feel in control if you don't. And by the time I drew my easy pickings, the Partisan was dead. He was actually one of the few opponents who went for Partisan, which I think is definitely the right choice. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to, you lose into the garbage chute. Well, I guess you don't really lose it, but you really want to be into the garbage shooting Partisan rather than Yoda or Riken. And then you lose easy pickings. So. He got the Partisan pretty early, and it was tough to come back after that. And then I played 2 Obi Mazes in a row. I think it was that. I might have played Obi Maz, then Taxter, and then Obi Maz. But both the Obi Mazes games, they felt pretty easy, except the one guy I think they might have both played. What's the card you get to resolve a die twice? My Ally's the Force, yeah. Yeah, and they both resolved that on the 3 on Obi, which really hurts sometimes. I think the one guy took out Yoda. I think they both went for Yoda.
You know what hurts worse? Mind
Probe. That's your favorite combo ever. But yeah, and then I played Taxter, who Brian had played earlier. He was playing the Rainbow Vehicle Hero deck, and that matchup I just don't think is very good for him. Because even though he played a first turn Y-Wing and a first turn Resistance Bomber and got a bunch of damage out, and then he played second turn Airspeeder and C-3PO, I think, and just ramped a ton of vehicles. But the problem is that deck's so slow that you can get hyperspaced out, and that's actually how I ended the game. I milled him and then hyperspaced to win when he probably could have rolled and killed me with all his vehicles on the table. Mm-hmm. So then I played Brian in the 8th round, and he beat me, but then scooped me. So because my breakers were horrible going in, I was the lowest of the X1s.
Yeah, going in, I was second place,
he was
and
second place,
you were what? The
I was like
6th
or 7th or something.
So you're the bottom X1.
Yeah. So if I had lost that, I feel like I don't make the top 8.
4 or 5 X2s don't make the cut, and your breakers being like the bottom already.
Mine were like way lower than everybody else's.
I took a peek. I was like,
I think it was like 50% or something, and yours were like 65 or 64 or something. Mm-hmm. It was pretty bad. So thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. I would have done the same for you. But and then we met again in the top 8. So I'll let you talk about your stuff. I saved all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into much detail as you went into, but
it's okay. You get to talk about the top 4.
Yeah. I mean, one of the most interesting decks I played was my first round. It was the Dr. Aphra Sienna Guavian. The point being is that they get out some, cheaper vehicles, or ramp a bunch of things into play for low cost, and then at the end of the game you get Sienna to untap your vehicle. And kind of maybe like a semi-OTK, you have like 8 or 9 vehicles in play, you maybe do flanking maneuver in that. But unfortunately for him, my C-3PO'd both flanking maneuvers out of his hand. And then I felt like it was just no way he could do enough damage to win. He also played an AT-DP, the special that discards the support plus 2 or less.
Wow.
And I was literally just about to play C-3PO, and he rolled the special, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna play that right now. And then he discards the reroll, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I'll play it. And then he pays 2 and readies it with Sienna, and then he rolls in the special, and I'm like, hyperspace jump, because I really can't afford to get that discarded. So that was a really interesting round.
So that is an interesting little tangent here. I've actually heard from elsewhere a couple people talking about even a card like Force Rend, which looks terrible at the onset because it's 2+2 as far as damage goes for a 3-cost upgrade. But people were playing it in, like, I heard specifically in a Kylo Talisman deck because the special could hit C-3POs, which was like one of the keys to beating Hero Mill was just if you just remove their only option at hitting your hand, really. Do you think that we'll continue to see more random cards like this that like just happen to be able to discard supports?
Well, we actually expected, so we had tested a ton against Poe Hondo. That was our main test, and then I don't think either of us played it until you played Andrew in the top 4.
Yeah.
So we were expecting Vandalize, and so that's actually why we played an extra Scout, because I think we were kind of on the fence about Scout, and then but the fact that they can Vandalize twice, you kind of need at least three things that can hit their hand to kind of finish out the game.
Yeah.
Plus the battlefield. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I don't think if they Vandalize.
I think there's just so many other good decks that card's not good into.
Yeah.
I'd be worried about playing it. But I played Obi Maz round 3. Like Will said, it was kind of an easy matchup, so not much there. Round 4, I played Taxture, and he kind of looked at me and was like, "Really, I play you round 4?" And he had seen what we were playing, and he also wasn't too happy seeing Mill because I don't know. That was probably the fastest game I had all day. I think it was like a 10-minute Mill, which was pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like again, hyperspace jump was pretty key in that matchup.
Even just them not being able to directly hit your shields, you'll almost always get the two mil off whenever you want to because like a vast majority of the damage in that deck is indirect damage.
Yeah, and I think against me he had like almost a perfect start and still wasn't like it was close, but it wasn't like I mean, never felt too far behind. But I think against you probably didn't have quite as good a start.
I also milled like 4 vehicles like quick, but yeah. 5th round, I played Tarkin 7th Sister. I actually was really worried about this. I kind of had a feeling that Tarkin was a bad matchup for us just because of his innate ability to utilize poor rolls for his ability. So even dice that we wouldn't normally want to mitigate, like blanks, all of a sudden become 4 damage, which, I mean, 4 indirect isn't usually bad, but I typically don't want to be getting rid of the shields on my side characters. Yeah. And then if I pile it on to Riken, could leave him for some 1-turn kills on him. But really what helped him in that matchup was Tarkin's discard sides. As he would roll in Tarkin, hit discard, and then randomly try to get, my removal out of my hand. And both times he did it, he got rid of the only removal card in my hand. And so then at that point he was able to do some crazy focus into double focus into double focus to all melee sides with like an ancient +3 and stuff. It was just not a good matchup, I felt like, and it really exemplified itself in that match. I ended up being my only loss of the tournament.
That's funny because the guy I played with Tarkin I didn't see the discard side. He was kind of using it more to just clean up his dice and deal 4 with like the random stuff he missed on. But he also, I guess he played leadership. I forgot about that, and so that was like a different.
It's almost a 1 Tarkin die.
Yeah.
1 is much different than 2. But.
Yeah. I then played a Kylo Talisman, which it was pretty scary because he killed Jedi Partisan round 2 before I rolled him in. So, we're losing a character that quick means you're only milling 1 with Riken, and really slows down your mill. So I ended up putting down a Scout on Riken and kind of using that as like a supplemental Jedi die.
Yeah.
And it ended up working out. I was able to, entrench, kind of tank up. And Kylo's ability just couldn't hit consistently enough and drew into removal.
I don't think I lost the character that early all day.
No,
Round two,
you sounded like you had quite a bit smoother ride.
No, I don't think I lost the character until like round 4 most games.
Yeah, I then played an Obi Maz that ended up making the top cut. It was a much closer match. There was the one where Obi Saber killed one of my characters. I felt pretty bad. He had 3 shields and just didn't kill
That was
him.
like the only dangerous card in that deck, it felt like to me.
Yeah.
Obi Saber.
I definitely falled back, and he kept it. But it did mean I got rid of an Ancient Saber, which I was kind of okay with that trade.
Yeah.
Oh, that's another thing is the Tarkin Seventh Sister played turn 1 Ancient Saber against me, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
He also played Viber Knife, which also
Yeah,
sucks.
Viber Knife is a scary card to be against too.
Um,
I only had one of those played against me today.
But then, yeah, turn 8th round was against Will.
Beat the devil out of him.
I don't want to go too much into detail, but let's just say
It was all skill.
Will is prime position to win, and somehow skill and will.
I played a 9 mil on the front.
So first action he roll or he gets the shields, and I don't know what I played.
No, didn't you get the?
No, you got the shields.
Did I? Yeah.
Yeah. So you go during your first turn.
Oh yeah, that was that.
You
game.
roll in Riken, and then Mills my All Quiet on the front. The only one in my deck. Probably the best card in the mirror match.
I don't know. Debatable.
Well,
Go
now.
ahead.
But so then Will later in the game goes entrenched, and then I'm like, well, and sure enough, he goes All Quiet in the front for 9. And yet I somehow managed to pull out
It
that
was
game.
because he played C3PO and then 2 chance cubes, and I don't think I.
No,
we didn't. That was not that game.
Yeah, we both milled each other, C3PO.
It was because
and
you had
Scout.
2 chance cubes. I had one of my chance cubes either discarded or milled or something, and so then at the end of the game, it was just a matter of bouncing the chance cubes in the right order. But you had one more action than me because of the double chance cube to kind of seal that up so I could never get ahead.
Anyways, basically beat the devil out of him. And, we were all pretty happy because we were pretty sure, with my breakers, I was pretty locked in, and Will going X1, he was guaranteed. And then our friend Andrew also went X2, and
A little nervous that he
we
was.
were a little nervous because he had gone. I think he lost in round 7.
He lost one early, I think.
Yeah.
Like round 4. He might have lost the same round as me.
But they announced from the bottom up, and when we heard 9th place, it wasn't Andrew.
Yeah.
So yeah, Andrew snuck in at 8th place. And then I heard my name at 5th, and then unfortunately Will having the so I actually ended up being the highest X2, and Will ended up being the lowest X1.
Yeah, it was because the guy who went undefeated lost his last round. If he had won, I think I would have been 3rd, and you would have been 5th, and then we wouldn't have met. But it didn't work out that way. So
yeah, we ended up playing in the top 8, and I just kind of beat the devil out.
Oh, those were some exciting matches of drawing chance cube and C3PO. I mulled all 5 cards both games to try and hit a chance cube or a C3PO, and I missed everything.
I will say my opening hand game 1 was so ridiculous. It was almost like I handpicked those cards.
And I still somehow almost came back.
Yeah, it really just comes down to those last couple of actions.
You just have to have 2 chance cubes out basically at the end of the game.
But
so random question inserted in here. I mean, especially in the mirror match, what gets milled really matters. Like if you don't hit your chance cubes because they get tossed down if you don't hit your C3POs. Against even against other decks that immediately vandalize your chance cube or vandalize your C3PO. Would you ever consider running a card like Cheat? Just to be like, oh look, I'm sitting on 5 resources, cheat back the fallback that got milled from my hand, play fallback, cheat back the C3PO you just took out. Or do you think it's just not worth the slot?
I think it's probably just better to run Friends in Low Places.
Yeah, I think the deck's so tight that and Friends in Low Places can hit other things, I feel like, in matches where you're not going to see vandalize.
Can get rid of that.
Well, I'm talking about cheat. Like the card that.
I would
yeah,
not run
yeah.
cheat.
No,
Okay.
I wouldn't. I don't think
I'd run friends in low places.
Yeah, I'd run friends in low places over that.
No, that's fine.
Just because, like, I don't know, you've got 2 copies of everything, and for them to vandalize both, or I don't know.
I mean, they have to bank on getting it, and then, like, I guess keeping it in their hand, I guess.
I mean, the one way to think about cheat though is it makes, in some sense, every one of your important cards a 3 of them instead of 2 of them. So you have that much better chance of getting to them if they're milled. I mean, obviously you have to draw one first.
Yeah.
I could see that.
I'd rather draw friends in low places early,
Mhm.
though, and it's still not bad late.
I can see the argument. I don't know. It's like you could get back in the deck generates a ton of resources. So you could cheat back in entrenched or I don't know, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I just a thought because I could definitely see next regional instead of there being 2 hero mill at a tournament, there could be 15 hero mill at a 90-person tournament, and then you definitely might want something. But if it's not enough, then
yeah, if this deck becomes popular, I think it would have to change for the mirror. The mirror is really just
I don't know. I think mirror has a lot of skill involved and some luck with the milling.
Once you know the progression of the end game, though, I think it just comes down to who. Like the first game we played, I didn't know that you basically had to have 2 chance cubes at the end of the game. But then from there, it's just kind of who can draw those and do the.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that in our deck tech.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. So.
Alright. So yeah, Andrew actually ended up beating his top 8 opponent.
That was the Obi
Maz. And so Andrew playing Pohondo had to play the winner of our match. And so after 2-0ing Will, I moved on to Andrew. And I will say, so game 1, I actually thought I had it pretty easily. I felt pretty confident. I think I had very few cards in hand, and I had a full health Yoda left. And it came down to me having a hunker down in hand, and him not being able to do that 1 extra damage that caused me to win the game.
Yeah, because he turned his X8 to a 3, and I think had was it 2 Hondo dice on special, or 1 Hondo dice on special?
Yeah,
You
it was
could
like a
pay for one.
disrupt and a
He ended up being able to do 6, and you had exactly 6 plus the hunker down.
And then game 2, I kind of beat the devil out of him.
Well, Andrew was running some pretty interesting choices with running interference and what else was he playing?
Rebel Assault.
Yeah,
would be a good
Rebel
example.
Assault. Emergency evac, yeah.
Which there will be an interview coming with Andrew as well, where he gets to talk about some of that snazziness.
Yeah, I think his deck was pretty brutal.
Yeah, I was definitely scared of it because we definitely played the matchup a bunch, and I don't know, I still felt like I had the edge.
I think
his deck was definitely more tech for us than other Pohondo decks, which we were ready for, but we didn't play any of them.
Yeah.
So that one game against Andrew was the only Pohondo match, and so I ended up 2-0ing that one. And then I knew Taxter was playing the Tarkin 7th Sister in the semifinals.
Was the deck you had lost to?
Yeah, the deck I lost to. And I really didn't want to play that deck again because it just seemed like a really bad matchup. But
when we
the
looked
same,
at that deck list, he had 18 upgrades,
yeah,
which is horrible for
looking
us.
back at his deck list, I can see why it was a bad matchup. It's just because he had so few cards that were dead against us, whereas other decks, their removal, a lot of their other cards are not really good at all. But no, he ran so many upgrades that it's just hard to keep control of. But I also felt like it was a poor matchup against the vehicle deck, in the sense that he kind of cares about doing a lot of damage and killing a character early, and with indirect plus the melee, and then he ran vibro knife and stuff. But against the vehicle deck, he didn't really care if he lost the character. His damage only kept going up and up and up. And so it just didn't really have enough finishing power. Although I will say, one of the games were pretty close. Came down to the end with Tarkin, with Taxter pulling out both games 2-0.
Yeah.
So yeah, then I had to play Texture in a rematch in the finals.
She was not too happy about it.
He was not happy at all. He was kind of rooting for Andrew there. And they were a lot closer games than my previous one. Definitely no 10-minute mills there. But he actually discarded one of my hyperspace jumps game one, which really kept him in it. And it came down to like his last turn, and it was just too much for him because I had so many resources I could pay for Y-Wing, or U-Wing, sorry.
No, why?
No, Y-Wing, yeah. So yeah, it just kind of nullified that damage. And
that was another reason I was happy to scrap heap.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to pay for.
And then game two was kind of a blowout with just hyperspace jumps. I was able to do 2 hyperspace jumps to kind of, one to get me out of a sticky situation and the other one to close out the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an interesting dilemma thinking about aggro decks or damage decks against Hero Mill. In some sense, you're like, you don't want to play this upgrade-oriented deck because they're just going to fall back and remove 5 upgrades potentially. And then you're like, okay, I'll play vehicles, and then they're just like hyperspace.
Yeah.
Just ends the round.
Yeah. I got to play the dream of removing 5 upgrades with fallback against Obi Maz. Removed.
Yeah, there's a lot of people looking at fallback for the first time.
Oh yeah, they were like, "What is this card?"
Yeah, they were like, "How many people have said they've never seen this card?"
Yeah.
Like, because they had never seen it.
A lot of my opponents said they had never played against Mill before, ever. Like, and so I was pretty happy when they said that. But I don't know.
Not so lucky here, but
Yeah.
So,
I mean, overall, I ended up going, what's that? 13 and 1.
Yeah,
I believe so.
basically. Yeah. And then,
well, 13 and 2, 12 and 2,
Wow.
depending upon whether you count your concession to Will.
well, he won that game. Yeah, I went basically 7 and 1, but 6 and 1, I guess, but not including what losing to you.
So yeah,
I think the decks that beat it, like, they have to have, at least for me, like, the deck that beat me had to have an extremely good start, and I misplayed a couple times in that game. I was on complete tilt.
I'm in disagreement here with Will. Will came to me and he was like, I just felt like this deck is like the best deck, and I did not feel that way all day. And it could just be another thing where your opponents just hadn't played against Mill, like
That's
you
true.
said. And like I said, I had a character die round 2, and discard was a random like factor.
Huh. Yeah, most of my games, it came down to like them just eking out one of my characters right when I was about to mill them out. And it's like, I don't know.
Well, certainly when the deck draws well, it seems insane. With all of its removal that can hit 2 dice, like the garbage shoots and easy pickings early will really shut down the early aggression. But at the same time, I've played decks with running those 4 cards, and it's like you draw your opening hand and you get like an electroshock, and you're like, what is this? Where is my good removal?
I think that's actually one of the reasons why it's really good against Obi Maz, because sometimes you just like take their whole turn away just with an easy pickings on Obi or a garbage shoot. It's really hard for them to come back from that.
Yeah, so after overall the store was nice.
Oh yeah, I really like the store.
I'm gonna give them props. I think on board games.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed about the prizes because they gave out like 3 boxes as raffle tickets. So like the raffle ticket won you a box of cards, yet we in the top 8 we got no prize.
Nothing
Like,
but the kit stuff.
Yeah, which I think seemed odd to me. I'm used to like playing Magic back in the day where the top 8 would just get a box or like a half a box at least for.
It's a very
top
different
8.
philosophy for sure.
It seemed odd to me.
I think usually what I see is either, everybody gets something, or like, everybody gets a little bit, and then the top, like, 8 would get something.
Yeah, I think there should be raffles. I like that, and maybe give away like 3 6-packs or something like that. But it seemed just odd to.
Yeah, it was kind of weird that, like 3 of 76 people went home feeling like they just won the tournament.
Yeah, I would have rather won the raffle than get top 8.
Right? There was no, like for Taxter, there was no difference getting top 4 and winning, or like getting second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, they definitely ran the tournament well. It was really smooth and everything was.
Yeah, no weak pairings or anything like that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Judging was good.
And then we
So-
had to drive home.
Yeah, you had an interesting drive home. So I was expecting Luke to arrive home at like 2 a.m. in the morning, Luke being my brother, and he didn't.
Yeah, we started driving and
Yeah, it was. Well, first we went outside after the tournament, and it was just like 3 or 4 inches of snow
already, yeah.
and it was still snowing. But the roads had been a little bit plowed. It wasn't too bad, so we had set on our trek and started driving home. I put in the GPS, and it said about 4.5 hours, which was a half hour more than
Yeah.
what it took us to get there. So I was like, oh, okay, that's not too bad. And I was driving, and it kept snowing. The roads were kind of decent. You just had these 2 tread lines where your cars go, and then you come across these cars going like 20 miles an hour, and you have to kind of like be careful because you kind of come up on them close. You don't want to brake, etc. But we get an hour into this drive, and all of a sudden, like, those 2 tread lines became skinnier and skinnier, and then it was just all white.
I just remember at one point looking out the window to the right, and I was like, I can't actually see like the edge of the road. Like there's just nothing on either side of the car.
So yeah,
you can see like 20 feet in front of you.
It was just still coming down heavy, and every time I looked at my GPS, I got more and more like distraught. Because rather than the estimated time of arrival going down, it kept going up. And so after an hour, it still said like you needed like 3 and plus something hours, which originally, yeah.
And then we felt like we were in a horror movie when we pulled up to that. Like.
Well, then I looked on either side, and typically there's guardrails, with like drop offs, but there was just nothing.
It's just a ditch.
Just ditches on either side. And I wasn't that tired, but at that point I just felt like, it wasn't safe necessarily to keep going.
Yeah.
So I told Bill to pull up to the nearest hotel, and glad we did.
Yeah.
Because the roads weren't plowed, and who knows when they would have been plowed.
Yeah. The next morning was good though.
Yeah, so we got a nice good rest, some good laughs.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to keep going too much longer just for brevity's sake. We're going to have a write-up that they'll be doing about the deck. But before we wrap up, do you have any thoughts about Reich and Mill going forward? Is it a problem? Is it really like tier 0? I know that I kind of think of it as like, it's tier 1, but the main problem with it is that the decks that aren't good against it lose terribly to it. Like, it's not like a like a 40-60 or a 30-70, it's like a 20-80. Like, it's just impossible to get to ever win against the deck. Which is really awkward because you don't want to show up to a tournament with some deck and just get annihilated every time you see something.
Yeah. The problem is you have to tech so hard for Mill because it's so different of a strategy, I think, that it makes your deck bad against most matchups. Like, I think for an Obi Maz to beat the Mill deck, I think it would have to have an insane start and like you just have to vandalize, and you just have to like not draw any removal, and then it gets like Shoto, Obi Saber, and you don't draw fallback. Like the things that would have to happen for it to win seem so unlikely. The same with the Hero Vehicle deck. Like it just the game it's playing, I feel like plays right into the Mill deck strategy. So for most decks, I think that's true. But then there's a few decks that you don't like feel like you have a good matchup, like Tarkin 7th, and any Tarkin deck really, and then maybe the Talzin Thrawn deck that you were playing. So,
I love that matchup.
I think
just call one all day long.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't think it's like 80-20 in their favor either, but I think it's a better matchup.
I'm going to be a devil's advocate, not just because I won with it and I think that it shouldn't be touched, but I also think it's very early, and I also feel like you were saying, like people aren't used to that playstyle of Mill, and it's a very different game. Like I had some opponents who just discarded a reroll like 3 or 4 times in one turn, and I'm just sitting there like, do they realize that I'm trying to mill them? And then
And then they discard a reroll, and then you remove their dice, and it's 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Than just holding their cards.
It's like you use that one card to also discard 2 cards. So, I mean, I am still a little hesitant. I think it's strong, don't get me wrong, and I think some decks, just get really crushed by it because it's just really susceptible, low damage deck that, similar to how like R2P2 was kind of like, I'm just going to shield up and sustain, and eventually I'll just do enough damage to kill you.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't really work against Mill.
But then a lot of people took their battlefield against me and gave me the 2 shields, which I think is definitely wrong in like 90% of the cases. Unless maybe if you're on like Throne Room and you have all like the Boba Phasma deck.
I think it's a bit more complicated than you make it out to be, but I could see a strong case for some decks just definitely needing to pick it.
Like maybe if you play Hidden Blaster or like Frighten, or what's that other one?
There's a lot of cards. Like my opponent played turn 1 Frighten against me, and it was the the Kylo Night Sister, and that was the one that killed my character round 2.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of cards that are good against other decks and good against Mill.
Yeah.
And I'm just interested to see how the meta shakes up because, even though we were doing well, like, we had a lot of different decks that did well. We even had Novi Maz who made it in the top cut.
Yeah. And then, I mean, a lot of the regionals, there's been like only 2 copies of the same decks that have won regionals. So.
Yeah, and there were a couple of the hero vehicle decks that actually won regionals that same weekend.
Yep.
I believe there was like a Yoda Zeb, and a couple other decks. I don't know them all. I think another Poe Hondo one.
It is kind of weird because it's like, I think the Rainbow Vehicle deck is really good against most damage decks, but has a really hard time against Mill. So if you nerf Mill, does that deck just become insane?
Well, I'd actually be curious to try. I don't think I've ever played our hero vehicle deck with the Chance Cube and Planned Explosion package to against Mill. Do you think that'd have a better chance because you can one-shot a character out of nowhere, kind of?
Maybe. It's a bit cheesy sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes you can just hyperspace out of it.
But definitely the hero vehicle deck and the hero mill deck are pretty tough contenders, up with Poe Hondo still being pretty good.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see all the new decks out there. I think that Legacies just has so many more viable characters, so many more viable character combinations can be played.
Definitely the best set so far.
Congrats to you guys, you did well. I'm sad I couldn't join you.
Yeah, we were
but
yeah, we got what? 1 first?
First, top 4, top 8, 11th, and 17th.
And 17th.
So Minnesota contingent.
Out of 5, all 5 of us.
People, yeah.
Yeah, all 5 of us did pretty good.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching. As I said, look for their tournament write-up. Look also for the interview with Andrew. It should be coming as well. And until next time, guys.
Cheers.
See ya.